This is the Reality Self-Help Podcast. Summer House Recap Edition, because I'm on a mission. Welcome to episode 3 of the Reality TV is Self-Help Podcast, Summer House Recap Edition. So I just watched Summer House episode 3. I'm going to talk about West. I have a little more hope that West and Sierra, if she chooses to get back with him, I have a little more hope for West because he was willing to actually call Kyle a baby after Kyle freaking out on Amanda at the beach. That is a step forward because I do feel like West is one of those guys who that's not his usual MO to call out another guy. Also, I liked that West referred to himself as a wiener when he was talking about Sierra. He still can't tell, is she joking with him? And when he gets hurt feelings, if he's just being a wiener. Because, for example, she said something about, like, get my glasses off of you. I don't want them on your sweaty forehead. Sometimes I think when a guy does treat a girl bad and then she has issues with that and goes back and forth, that the guy suddenly his feelings get hurt so easily because he almost knows that he's treated her so bad, so it's hard to differentiate. I do think that West is moving forward and is showing that he's growing as a person. My gut tells me that if he works her to the point that she decides to get back with him, I do think he's going to freak out again and not be able to handle the commitment and what it really means to be just with one person. So we'll see. Then let's talk about Kyle and Amanda and the beach argument. One of the most ridiculous things he says is, "You're driving me to drink," to Amanda. It actually gives me a little compassion for, I do think Kyle is struggling with alcoholism. I say that as an alcoholic. I haven't drank for 17 years. When I've seen him drink, there's aspects that remind him of me, where you can just see in certain people when there is not an off button, and once they're drunk they're going to want to keep drinking more and more. And I think it's safe to say we've seen that in Kyle for every single season he's been on the show. It is very interesting how he is so fixated on pinning Amanda smoking weed all the time as the biggest issue, even though she clarifies and points out some stuff. She doesn't smoke weed at night till after 10 p.m. around 10:30 when their dogs have been taken out for the last time. This is almost like taking a sedative before bed, in my opinion. I say this as someone who has smoked tons and tons of weed before and have waked and baked, and if you can hold off till 10:30, then no, I don't think that's a problem to smoke weed every single night. It's a problem when you're smoking it throughout the day and are feeling weighted down. And that is so intriguing how Kyle needs to frame everything. He's going off on Amanda on the beach. Apparently he's going to apologize for her. So Kyle freaking out on Amanda in front of everyone, saying she doesn't have enough drive. To me, he's pretending he's a workaholic, or that he's more motivated than Amanda. But what I think is he's just more motivated to get wasted, and she is a homebody. It's just such a mess. I don't think fully anyone's really stood up to Kyle as much as they should. When we go back to that dinner, and then Kyle freaks out, he flips the chair back, which was where we left off on the last episode. Kyle runs away, smashes stuff in the house, and then he goes out on the front porch. It is really funny because he's kicking a bunch of Amazon boxes, and I couldn't help but laugh at that. But he's talking about how he's all alone, and he's saying this out loud, though, because maybe he's just talking to himself, but he is aware he's being recorded. This is kind of relevant later in the episode because Amanda's saying when the cameras go off and there's no one watching, this is when Kyle refuses to want to put all this effort in. I really, really feel for her in terms of there is a huge performance aspect to a lot of what Kyle says and does. That would break it for me. Because I think in relationships, intimacy and what takes place between you and the one other person is above all else. So I've never been someone that understands, showing big public proclamations of love or Instagram photos of you kissing someone else. That to me is the least important thing. It's about what happens when it's the two of you. And I have a feeling that's what matters to Amanda as well. Kyle continuously refusing to focus on their intimacy, even though at the beach he's saying that what's missing between them is intimacy, compatibility. And he's saying, you don't show an interest in me. He's freaking out on her in front of all their friends on national television and still doesn't really get to see this or connect the dots. Another interesting thing with the new person, Mia. So she introduces or talks about her boyfriend, Scott. He owns a restaurant. She says he has to travel all the time for work. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the constant traveling thing. For some reason, I want to know more about this story, because for me, immediately, maybe it's just because I've been burned so many times by different guys, immediately my stomach goes, is he a cheater? Are we going to find out more that he's a cheater or he's not who he says he is? Because that, I don't know why, but that was my immediate reaction to hearing about that. I really like Mia, so I want to see more about her, and she's really funny. Something about that relationship I want to get more of a description of it, I would love to see Scott come up for a weekend and see what he's like, if he can find the time. Then also it was really interesting seeing KJ talk to Bailey, and it was kind of making me wonder, is she starting to get a bit of a crush on KJ? If he's a player, he's doing a really good job of hiding it. He hasn't talked to his dad for 5 to 6 years. That touches a part of my heart because from the ages of 12 to 25, I didn't talk to my dad or see my dad at all. And I understand that. And I think some people, if you have healthy relationships with your parents, you will never understand what energy it takes and how hurtful it is when you don't want to communicate with a parent. And for KJ, he was talking about how his dad just did not put effort into him. When they showed a photo of when he was 5 years old, and he was so cute. And he was saying how at school, kids would ask, "Where's your dad?" And he would say, "I don't have a dad. God is my dad." Because I guess that's what his mom told him to say. Kids would laugh and say, "That's not possible." And he says, one day his dad showed up in his driveway. He didn't even know him. His dad showed up in a Hummer because his dad was a professional baseball player. That's when his mom said, "Hey, this is your dad." He was saying how his dad just won't respond to text. KJ is what he's revealing shows how complex he is. He's also saying that he's so good at speaking about his emotions, but that in relationships with women, when he's been able to express himself, they've almost freaked out and backed off because that's not I'm adding this additional part, but it's not a stereotypically masculine thing. So that part, I just want to see what else happens with KJ because he is around so many bros in this house. I'm really hoping people push back against Kyle more and more and rally around Amanda more and more. She just seems really fragile right now. Why does Kyle get to go in the pool in his underwear, jump in and have fun with all the guys? When Amanda did that on the first episode, he was shaming her, judging her. "You should have told me." Well, then why didn't you go tell Amanda that you were just going to jump in the pool with all the same people in your underwear? Oh, because you have a total double standard, Kyle, and it's all about you. Then he gets in bed with Amanda at 5 a.m., wakes her up again. "I feel lonely. I'm having some anxiety right now." Then she makes the most obvious statement, which is, maybe your drinking is not helping your anxiety. But what I see is there is, especially at the beach, there is a complete blockage there. I do think Kyle is not at a point, it does seem that he is incapable of considering that all even Amanda was asking is for him to get his drinking under control, which my outside opinion is that's going to be almost impossible to do, because if he was going to be able to achieve that, why wouldn't he have already done that? Also, you can be a DJ and you do not have to drink alcohol, though there's clearly additional temptation by being in a club when you're DJing. So I felt sad for Kyle because there is so much in society that's structured around drinking, and Kyle, his wild and crazy guy personality, has gotten so much praise for that. Another really sad part was when Sierra's in bed with Amanda and she says, because Sierra was checking in just, "How are you after that big fight?" or with Kyle at the table. And Amanda's saying, "I just don't know if I'll be good enough for someone else." I relate to that because I've experienced those feelings and they still come up at times, and working through them and knowing you're worthy and all of that is not an easy feat. That makes me so sad that is how Amanda feels about herself. I appreciate her saying that out loud because I think it is helpful. It's going to help other people. It shows how much Kyle, his treatment of her and not being willing to prioritize her, has really chipped away at her self-esteem. When Kyle goes out on the front porch and Kyle's saying, "I'm all alone right now," and you see Carl, he is trying to be a good friend and trying to support Kyle, but this is my interpretation, is Kyle is refusing to acknowledge the biggest issue in his life, which is his drinking. Even me saying I think Kyle has a drinking problem, it's almost, I don't even know if I should say that, but I also don't know how to look at him without seeing that is what's most concerning in his life. That is what I think is the greatest barrier to his happiness. I think for Carl, it's this awkward position of he doesn't want to call that out because you can't force someone to recognize that in themselves if they don't see it themselves, and it doesn't seem like Kyle does see that in himself. Carl is trying to be a good guy, but he can only do so much. And the future clips, seeing how Jesse is asking West, "Would it be okay if I make out with Sierra?" And the way it's shot, or we're shown it, it looks like he's with KJ and I don't know who the other guy is when this happens. In a sense, West doesn't have a leg to stand on because he was with Sierra. He threw that down the toilet, but that doesn't mean that Jesse then gets to be, "Oh, hey, I'm going to make out with your ex-girlfriend," just because you're not with her anymore. So I like that West appears to bring that up later to him. I can't wait to see that because West seems very non-confrontational. He seems like someone who does not want to admit when someone really hurts his feelings or bothers him. I don't think he is someone who likes to admit to feeling anger, frustration, jealousy. So that is a step forward for him as well, to bring that up with Jesse and directly confront the betrayal as a friend, that's not okay. Can't wait for next episode. It's wild. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful night.